Hello everybody, this is Christa and welcome back to Adventures in Metaphysics. And today I decided to film a little video for Sylvain's latest tag, 7 Decks for Heavenly Virtues. So I had a lot of fun doing the previous one, 7 Decks for Deadly Sins, so I figured why not come full circle and do this one too. And I loved the prompts and I love seeing everyone else's videos that they made. I feel like I've been watching them obsessively for the last few days. So let's just get right into it. So the first heavenly virtue is prudence. And the prompt for this one is your most practical or all-purpose deck. And for me, that is my teeny tiny tarot by Holly Audley. So I have loved this one since I got it. I got it in the kit with the mini divvy, the ghosts, which I also love. But what makes this feel like my most practical or all-purpose deck is just how straightforward the images are. They don't seem to really point in any kind of certain direction or theme, if that makes sense. I try not to sort of pigeonhole my decks into one purpose if I can help it, but, you know, it's undeniable that certain decks fit a certain kind of reading. Where this one, I really don't feel like it gives off any strong sense one direction or another. I also love the little quotes on some of these cards. The Tower card in this deck is one of my absolute favorites. So I find it's really easy to use it in a multi-purpose way. I can do any kind of reading with it. I like the simplicity of the pictures. So it kind of allows me to use my intuition and sort of pull on my knowledge of tarot a little bit more. And also the size. It is a pocket-sized deck, so this is one that I always travel with because it's so easy to bring around. I love the colors of this deck too. I just think it's really fun. Let me find the Tower card. Oh, here it is. I just have to show this one. It's my favorite tower, possibly of all time. So it's really simple, but I love how it says everything you thought you knew, and it's coming tumbling down. I just love the layer that gives to that card of breaking down everything you thought you knew, and how that's not really always a bad thing. So cool. So that is my deck for prudence, and that is the teeny tiny tarot. All right, the next heavenly virtue is justice, and that is a deck you use to make decisions. And for me, that is definitely my Pixies Astounding Lenormand. This is actually the only Lenormand deck I have. I don't use Lenormand too often, and I just love this one so much that, I don't know, I don't really feel the need to have others, I guess. But I really love using the Lenormand system specifically for when I'm trying to make decisions or when I kind of just want a yes or no answer. I really like that it's pretty straightforward. There's not too much you can kind of pull out extra from the given meanings of the cards, if that makes sense. Where I feel like Tarot and Oracle, you can go in a lot of different directions. At least to me, this system is sort of, you get what you get, you know? And I love the guidebook for this particular Lenormand because it gives you the energy of whether it's positive or negative. Let's see if I can find some other ones. Some of them are also neutral, I believe. So we have mountain is negative. Can't remember which one was neutral. Well, oh, here we go. So these are neutral. So I really enjoy using this for yes or no questions because I will associate the positive cards with yes, negative no, neutral meaning why are you asking me? Which those are always interesting to get. So yeah, I feel like when I'm trying to make a decision, for the most part, I always feel like I know at least what I want to do, which isn't always necessarily what I should do, where I feel like I have a tendency, if I'm using tarot or oracle to get answers from, I will be totally biased in my reading, where I will skew it as much as I can to go the direction I want, where this, it's not really possible to do. Plus, I like the ability to ask yes or no questions. I love the pictures of this deck. So this is my deck for Justice, and it is Pixie's Astounding Lenormand. Now we are on to Fortitude, which is a deck that doesn't pull any punches. For me, that has to be my Mons Tarot, which I feel like is probably kind of surprising because this deck, it's a cute deck. There's no way around it. And it's never in a million years what I expected from this. Ooh, we're gonna have to move some of those. It's a bit of a larger deck. All right, sorry, crystals. I never expected, I guess, the kinds of readings I get from this deck. I really thought it was kind of gonna be a bit inner childy, or I don't know. I just loved the artwork. I don't know exactly what I expected from it, but certainly not the readings I do get, which are just getting absolutely roasted by my cards. I feel like from the very first time I pulled from this deck, and I have the travel version as well, and so that is actually the first copy I had, but it's the same with that deck. It just was so spot on. It called out absolutely everything, which is definitely what I need a lot of the times. I need to just be called out on stuff. And I've never had such clear readings in that regard, because again, like, when I read for myself, it's not always easy to kind of take out my own bias. This deck doesn't let me be biased in the least. And it's just so interesting, because I mean, would you ever expect that from the Mons Tarot? I know I certainly didn't. It's a deck I really like to go to, especially when there's any sort of kind of conflict going on, or I'm not really understanding how I'm feeling about something. I always take out this deck because it's not afraid to tell me what maybe I've been doing wrong in the situation. It doesn't necessarily focus on my emotions so intensely. I find that it's kind of one that tells me, hey, this is how you're feeling, and here's why. It's because you're doing this. I don't know, it's just really cool. I love this deck so much. It's so unexpected. So that is the Mons Tarot, and that is my deck for Justice. So the next category is probably the one I was most excited for, and that is Temperance. Whoa, I said that weird. Temperance, and it is a deck pairing that you love. And I couldn't choose between my two favorite pairings, so I'm showing you both, and that's that. So first I'll do this first. My first favorite pairing is my Le Beaumont Tarot with Pear Tree Court Oracle. And you'll see exactly what I mean. I feel like as soon as I take these cards out, they just feel like they are made for each other. We're gonna have to, these crystals are not working out for me today. We'll have to bring them back out if I do like a mini deck video or something. Then maybe they'd work. Anyhow. I mean, come on. That's good. Isn't that? Let's move this. So they don't portray the same time period, but I do feel like they give off such a similar feel. and just aesthetically they work so well together, but also they read really well together. I don't know if that's shallow or not, but the aesthetics of decks going together does matter a lot to me. I find that I read the messages a lot better if the artwork feels cohesive, if that makes sense. Where I find if there's a lot of difference to me between it, it can be a bit jarring and distracting. So I just love when they go so well together like this. I've had the Les Beaumonde Tarot for a while, and it was a bit of a challenge deck because of the pips. So I got this, oh gosh, such a long time ago now, but it was towards when I was first beginning to read tarot, so I found I had to put it away for a little while I learned more about tarot and the meanings of the cards and the symbolism. But in the past maybe half year or so, I've picked it back up, and now that I know a bit more, it's a lot easier for me to read with. The pips don't bother me anymore. But I just didn't have an oracle deck that I felt worked well with it, and I do really like reading oracle and tarot together. And then I found this oracle deck this is made by Danny Mystic, who I love watching her videos. Actually, she just did this tag as well, which has kind of sparked my memory about it, that I wanted to do it. So that's kind of fitting. But yeah, I saw this on her Etsy shop, and I was like, oh my gosh. It's not exactly the same, but I feel like that would work so well, and it just does. Like, look at that. Isn't that so, I think it's so exciting. I get so excited about stuff like that. Alright, I guess I should move on to the other one, but I just love looking at this so much. I mean, come on. That's good. So that is the Pear Tree Court Oracle with the Les Beaumonde Tarot. And my next one leans a bit more to the nature side of things, which I also love. I feel like both of these pairings show my kind of aesthetic preferences, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so I have the Old Ways Magic Oracle with the Elemental Power Tarot. Elemental Power? I think that's it. I always mix it up with the other tarot deck that has elemental in its name. We'll find out. Pretty sure it's Elemental Power. Alright, these are big cards as well, so hopefully these fit in the screen. Yes, perfect, beautiful. These are just a match made in heaven. Huh! Pun not intended. But it's another one that just, the aesthetics of it work so well. It's got a very similar art style. It almost seems like they were drawn in the same kind of way. Kind of with this sketchy pen art filled in with almost like watercolor, it looks like. But they also read together so beautifully. And this tarot deck is newer to me, but it's the only one I have that really dives into numerology. I love this card with all the mushrooms hanging upside down. So it's another pip deck, but if you read the guidebook, the meanings really pull on numerology rather than like RWS or something like that, which is new for me and I'm really enjoying learning more about. So I've had this oracle deck and I brought it to work for Rachel to look at, and she had just gone and picked up this tarot deck from Barnes & Noble before she came to work that day. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like we need to try these together. I feel like they're going to work so well. Like, what a crazy coincidence that we just brought them on the same day. And we were both pretty wowed by how they read together. So naturally, I had to go and get my own copy too. But this is the Old Ways Magic Oracle and the Elemental Power Tarot, and that is my second pairing for temperance. Next up, we have Faith, which is a deck you use for spiritual guidance. For me, that is definitely my Crow Tarot, which actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I included this one in that, like, decluttering / collection series I did, because I keep it separate from my other decks. I keep it on this little mini altar space I have. So I have felt really connected to crows for the longest time. I think I've told this story before, where when I moved to my last house all on my own, I lived by myself, just Stevie and I had 3 crows that would show up on my lawn all of the time, almost daily. And it was always exactly 3, and it seemed like the same ones. And when Paul and I bought this house that we're in right now, when I would drive here to, you know, just do stuff like start cleaning up, or we were doing all the painting before we moved, we had a few week period where we were kind of in this liminal space of not being moved in here yet, but doing a lot of work and just being here a lot. There would always be 3 crows while I was driving between one house and the other. So I've just had this really interesting connection to them. So whenever I am doing any sort of spiritual readings or looking for guidance in that way, I always use my Crow Tarot. I've started working a little bit with the Morgan, who is very connected to crows, so this whole thing going on with my crows kind of got me thinking, oh, maybe that's what's going on. It's still a new thing for me, so I don't really have any certain practice going, but I do use this deck daily to get any messages that might be out there. It feels very connected to spirit for me. So this one stays on a little altar space I have set up for the Morgan, or just for crows. I love this one. So yeah, this is the Crow Tarot, and this is my deck for Faith. Next up, we have Hope, which is a deck for dark times, or kind of your hug deck. And after that decluttering I did, I actually don't have a deck that I would say is specifically a hug deck. I just found that wasn't something that was super helpful for me, or something that I went to a lot. I think because I am naturally kind of half glass full, very optimistic, sometimes to my own detriment, trying to find the good in everything, I found that having sort of purely comforting hug decks more enabled that when it wasn't necessary, more than anything else. So I don't know that I have specifically a hug deck, but one that I go to if I'm just feeling really down and dark is my Victorian Fairies Tarot. This one always brings me back to just a comforting place. So it doesn't necessarily give me comforting messages. I find that it reads really well and is always honest with me. This one feels very connected to almost like a spirit guide type feeling. I think that's another reason it's comforting, but it brings me back to this place of magic that I feel like I had when I was younger and even into my teens. I've always loved illustrations like this and the idea of fairies. This is how I imagine fairies to be, kind of that very like Thumbelina type way. So being able to put myself in this magical fairy world is comforting for me without enabling, if that makes any sense. Even just looking through these pictures, I find I'm able to hear what I need to hear while keeping that kind of sunshiny element. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this one feels really comforting to me. And again, it feels like I'm getting advice from almost like a specific guide or something like that. I'm not too certain, but that's what this one feels like. So that is the Victorian Fairy Tarot, and that is my deck for hope. Last but certainly not least, we have Charity, which is a deck you would give to someone. And I'm actually taking a note from how Empress and Basil, Jess over there, interpreted this. So she looked at it in two ways, which I really liked. So the first way was a deck you would give to someone maybe because they're just starting to learn about tarot and how to read tarot for themselves. And another way where it's a deck you would give because you just love it so much and you think it would be helpful. So a deck I would give someone who is just starting to learn how to read tarot is the Everyday Witch Tarot. And it's funny because I resisted this deck for so long. I only recently, within the past 6 months, got this deck, and I almost wish I had this earlier on into learning tarot. This one is such a clear reader. It comes with one of those really great Llewellyn large guidebooks, which is very helpful. It closely aligns with the RWS, so that makes it a good learning tool, I'd say. And I just think the images are fun and almost relatable in a way, even though it's people kind of walking around with these like Renaissance fair type outfits. I personally find it to be relatable, but I do tend to like being immersed in a bit of a magical world. So I just feel like this deck is really, really approachable. I don't actually have a copy of the standard RWS. I did have one that I brought to the library because our teen center now has some tarot books. So I gave my copy of the RWS to the teen librarian in case any of the teens there wanted to have a tarot deck to kind of play with while they were going through those books, which, I mean, how freaking cool is that? Did you ever think in a public library there would be tarot books for teens with like a tarot deck for them to play with? I just think it's the coolest thing. Anyway, I had that deck and I never used it. I got it because I kind of felt like I should have it, but just it didn't really work for me. The images, I don't know, I just didn't connect to it. But I do think that, of course, would be good to give someone to learn on. That makes a lot of sense. But for anyone who maybe feels the same as me, where that imagery just doesn't work, I think this is a really good other option. So that is the Everyday Witch Tarot. And the deck I would give someone, because I just love it and I personally think it's game-changing, is the Prairie Majesty Oracle. And I also think it's exciting because you can get this mass market now, so it makes it really accessible. So I've talked about this, I feel like a million times now, but it's hands down probably my favorite oracle. Coastal Curiosities is a top contender as well. I think I would flip between those two, but if it was someone who maybe, I think I'm looking at this question as well, someone who maybe is a bit newer at reading with Tarot Oracle, and I just think this deck is so straightforward and easy to read with because of the questions. There's so many different ways you can use it. where Coastal Curiosities, you need to rely on your intuition a bit more with it, which I absolutely love. But if I'm looking at it as the scope of I'm gifting it to someone and maybe I don't know that person super well, this would absolutely be the one I pick. I love this deck so much. I think everyone should have it. It's just, oh, it's my favorite Oracle deck. I use it for just about any kind of reading. I've even used it recently in a past life reading for myself, and I couldn't believe how well it worked. I was like, you know what, we're just gonna use this because of how familiar I am with it and how much I feel connected to it, and see what happens, and it worked amazingly well. I could look at these pictures all day. So that is the Prairie Majesty Oracle, and that is the last one that I would gift to someone else. All right, I hope you all enjoyed that video. I love doing these tarot tags. I have a few more on my list that I am hoping to do soon. I just think they're so much fun, and I love watching everyone else's responses to one. Just like, I like being nosy and seeing what decks that you're all using. That's fun. But just seeing the different ways people use certain decks, I think that's my favorite part, because if I have a similar deck to someone else, I think it's so cool when we use it in this like entirely opposite way. Anyhow, I hope you all enjoyed and have a wonderful rest of your day.